Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today is Thursday, September 15th, 2022. I am Solid Blue Sister, and this is My Turn to Talk. And I hope everyone's having a great day because today in Southern California, it is nice. It is nice outside. Not too hot, not too cool. It's just right, at least for me. Welcome, lover boy. Hope you are doing well. Hey, Frankie. Hey, Ninja Bunny. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hopefully, we're going to have a fun show today. And anyone over on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, welcome. Welcome to YouTube. And thanks for sharing the show, Ninja Bunny. Hey, Minnesota. Welcome, welcome. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the music here and I am going to get started. Today, I changed the topic this morning, but today I want to talk about reunions, yes or no. And when I say reunions, I mean class reunions, family reunions. I know some places that have had workplace reunions. Um, yes or no? Have you or would you attend a high school or family reunion? Is it what you expected? Are there unresolved issues? Would you attend another? Does it matter if you bring a spouse, significant other, or go stag? I know some people dread going to high school reunions. Um, some people just don't want to, there's some people who just don't want to deal with some of the people that they hey Shelby, some people just don't want to deal with some of the people that they dealt with back then. For some people it's a 10-year reunion. Some people, it starts getting up there 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Juju said that she a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember if it was a family reunion. She said, I think it was the last one, a 70th reunion. So what do you think about reunions? Welcome, Jane Barbier. I hope I pronounced that correctly. If not, I apologize. So what do you guys think? Um, I have never attended a high school reunion. Um, I've never wanted to. Um, I get invited to them all the time. They have one every 10 years, and it's like, we're having another one. Why don't you come? Da, 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 da. I'm just not interested. I did not like high school. Um, High school was not one of my better uh, experiences. Um, and I choose not to go back and revisit that. But that's just me. Family reunions I have been to. Some of them are okay. Some of them are like, hey, what's up? And then it's like, okay, ready to go. So what do you guys think? Okay, Ninja Bunny says I just went to my family reunion this weekend. I brought my partner. My family loves him. Well, that's good. That is good. Loverboy says I've never been to mine. Maybe I should someday. And he says I didn't like high school either. And I mean, I was and I know I'm dating myself when I say this, but I was a pom pom girl, and and I was part of different. clubs and things like that, whatever. But at the same time, I was a nerd. Yes, I was a pom girl and I was a nerd. But um, I high school just wasn't. It's not a place that I want to revisit. And when people always send me pictures of the reunion. My school, if you want to know anything that's going on with them, all you gotta do is just go to Facebook and you see everybody posting stuff, from different classes, all the way, back to when the school first started, like in the 50s. People are constantly posting things, whatever, and you see these people. It's like, yeah, yeah, I remember her. Yeah, no, So Shelby Jack says, I agree. I do not go to my high school reunions. Ninja Bunny says, everyone I talked to in high school, I still talk to, and no need to go to a reunion. Okay, and Ninja Bunny, I will say there are five people that I still talk to from high school. And other than that, I don't, everyone else, I just let go. Um, so is that something, I mean, is that cold, or is it rude, or, like if someone from high school reaches out to you, because I have this one particular person who reaches out to me all the time. I did not like her in high school. She was not a nice person. Um, she talked about everybody. Um, and there was a time that we went through, where she went a little bit too far, and I said something that wasn't very nice, but it kind of put her in her place. But I just, I didn't like her, but yet she reaches out to me. My sister tells me, yeah, I ran into so and so, and she told me to tell you hi. Here's her number. She wants you to call her. And this has been, going on for years. I don't. So should you reach out to people? Should you if people reach out to you, do you think that you have an obligation to respond after not seeing them for so many years? What do you guys think? Yes, she could. Um, but this girl was mean. I mean, she was just downright mean. And after she got out of high school, when we were still living in the same city, it's like you get married, you have kids. Well, I didn't, but she, she got married, had kids and stuff. And she's still rude. She is still mean, And when I run into people, when I go home to visit and I run into people, whatever, and if her name comes up, they're like, yeah, she's still the same old, whatever. So, maybe she could be trying to apologize, but if she's still the same person, then, are you just apologizing to me? But then again, what about everybody else? So I don't know. Okay, host. Okay, bye. Welcome, PNB. Is this filthy breakfast? I apologize for not welcoming you while I was talking, but welcome. Let's see. Welcome. I do try to welcome everyone, either typing in welcome or giving them a verbal welcome. So, I apologize for that. So you guys, what do you all think? I mean, do you think that people go to reunions to and I apologize for you guys hear that noise. My window's open. I didn't close my window. Do you think people go to reunions to deal with unresolved issues? Do you think people go to reunions to stalk that boy or girl that you had a crush on, and you're like, they may be married, but maybe, or how do they look? Do you think people go to reunions? And I'm talking about not just high school, but family reunions also, just to see how people look. welcome, shy lady. I mean, do you think people go to reunions to see how people look? That person's gained weight, that person looks the same, that person, this. Now who did they marry? He married her, she married him. I mean, do you think, you know, that people are thank you, Filthy Breakfast, for following. Um uh so what do you guys think? Let's see. You guys are just okay saying hello. So and then let's switch over. Now I asked the same thing, switching over to a family reunion. Do you go to family reunions to really see Uncle Joe that you haven't seen in 20 years, or Aunt Sue, or cousin Lily, or whomever? Um and then for Ninja Bunny, you bring up a good point. Um, okay, Shelly says absolutely they do, or to brag about what they're doing. Yes, yes, yes. So, Ninja, if your family did not like your partner, would you still go to your family reunion? Or okay, would you go stag? Would you go by yourself? Or would you still take him? What if he still wanted to go? I mean, not to antagonize or anything, but he just wanted to go. Say, maybe if I go, maybe they're around me more, or whatever. And then for people, if you are in a situation where you go to a family reunion and your family does not like your partner, significant other, hello, Crucible, welcome. Do you think that uh, it would make a difference? Meaning, if your family did not like your husband or did not like your wife, and you knew that they didn't, and this has been going on for years, do you think that if your significant other said, your family doesn't like me, I don't want you to go, would you stay home? And Ninja Bunny is answering my question. I go along if that was the case. Okay. All right. All right. So do you think that would ruin your time at the family reunion? I mean, do you think that would ruin your time knowing that you're there by yourself because your family, your grandmother doesn't like, your boyfriend, um, uh, or the person you're with? Um, would that ruin your good time? And what if you saw someone in the family, or even I'm gonna keep it the family here, and then I'll go back to the high school or school reunion. Um, what if someone in the family that you didn't quite get along with, would you use that time to air your grievances or unresolved issues, or would you just let it go? I mean, would that be the time to say something, or it's like, well, I haven't said anything in 10 years, or I haven't said anything in the last three years, so why bring it up now? Okay. No, I would still. Ninja says no. I would. No, it would be a shame, but I still have a good time. Okay. And Shelby says I would still go and bring my family. That would not be appropriate place. Okay. So Shelby, so if they did not like your husband, when you say bring your family, are you including him, or you bring your children and anyone else, but not him? And Crucible, welcome, welcome. You want to chime in? Yes, husband too. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I do. Hello, Sal. Hello, everybody. reunions are tricky, especially family reunions. And I agree with Shelby in her comment. That probably wouldn't be the appropriate place. And, I'm fortunate enough, I don't have any issues with my family, but I know people who do. And those estrangements are really tricky. And people, even though you or me or somebody may say, okay, 10 years have passed or however many years it's been, that's long enough. The other person may say, you know what, that's not long enough. Whatever you did or said, I can't get past it, and when you're in a social setting like that, and in a reunion, quote unquote, where people are supposed to have a lot of bonhomie and goodwill and whatnot, it's not always the case, and sometimes that can be even more fractious in families as opposed to just friends and whatnot. So, this has been going on for time and eternity, not just with reunions, but families not necessarily liking the spouse or partner of one of the family members. And it's one of those things where I think people just, after a certain period of time has passed, I think people are like, this is the way it's going to be now. It's very difficult to mend fences. Things get worse, in my experience, over time. What was maybe a not minor, but kind of an innocent thing that happened over time can take on a life of its own. So, but would I go alone? I probably would go alone. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the rest of the family. Would I let one person keep me away or two people? No, no, I wouldn't. But reunion, this is an interesting topic. I have a little more to say on it in a minute, but I would definitely go alone. I wouldn't have said that in the past, but as I've gotten older, I tend to look at these things a little differently.
Okay, and Crucible, you bring up an interesting point. Why do you think people? Because I do believe that people do have this issue about going to a reunion alone, especially a class reunion. And to me, it's no big deal. Like if you go, you just go. I mean, because more than likely there's going to be someone else there, especially as you get older, or maybe not. That there is going to be at least one other person who's going to show up by themselves. Welcome, Alpha Mike. So, I mean, why do you think people, have reservations about going stag?
Well, that's a very timely topic, believe me, because I am actually going to a reunion, a class reunion next weekend. It's the 50th reunion of all things, my eighth grade class. I've mentioned this to a handful of people. Not a single person has said anything, but who has an eighth grade 50th reunion? It's very strange. But we had a 10-year reunion, we had a 20-year reunion, and now I guess somebody decided, since there's not going to be any more, might as well have the 50th now. So I have been going back and forth for 2 months now since I found out about it, and agonizing between, because I'm not married, I don't have a girlfriend. So the last two reunions we had, everybody was still relatively young. The first one, I think we were 24. The other, we were 34. And almost everybody was single. I don't remember anybody coming with a spouse or a girlfriend. We were a pretty tight group back then, and we stayed friends into our teen years and into our 20s and 30s, and went to each other's weddings and whatnot. So it's a little bit of a unique group, but everybody was single. And we had a great time, if I remember correctly, 30 years ago. But this time around, we're in our 60s. It's been at least 30 years since I've seen most of them, and in some cases, it's probably been 50. And one day I'm all excited about it. I want to go. I can't wait. The next day I'm like, nope, not going to do it. Can't get there. Nope, too much. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to stand in the middle of the room, not recognizing anybody. I mean, no, people are not going to have hair. They're going to be heavier than they used to be. I mean, I can't even recognize people sometimes from 10 years ago. So I'm conflicted on this whole thing. I don't know what to do, but today I'm planning to go. Tomorrow I could change my mind, but I've gotten a lot of anxiety over it, and I can't really explain it.
Hey, you went out, Crucible, so I'm assuming you got a phone call. Okay, I'm assuming you got a phone call because you went out,
No,
or
I'm in a bad reception area. I'll be moving to another room here. I'm okay. So
okay. Well, with
yeah,
the
so I just don't understand. These are my friends. I have had great relationships with them, even though we haven't seen each other in a long time. But I shouldn't be nervous about this, but I am.
I am I'm sorry because I think that's fascinating. I think it's fascinating when people don't want to go by themselves someplace. So let me ask this: would you go to a restaurant by yourself and sit there and eat?
I've done it. I'm not crazy about it, but yeah, I have. I don't care for it, but I
Okay,
do it. Yeah.
but are you when you're sitting there, are you saying to yourself, everybody's sitting here watching me eat by myself? Are you just sitting there and enjoying your meal?
I'm just sitting there enjoying my meal because in that situation, there's an element of anonymity about the whole thing. Nobody knows who I am. Nobody's judging me. And the other thing is, I'm not don't air my personal story or anything. I don't want to bore the crap out of everybody, but I also have not had any kids. So there's no, when people look at you at that age and you're kind of like, well, you could say in your 30s, well, I'm not married yet, I don't have any kids, but people can say, well, there's time. You're young enough, you can do that. No one's going to say that this time around. It's going to be kind of like, what happened to this guy? Didn't get married, didn't have kids. And that's maybe a legitimate observation. So I don't feel like I'm being judged in a restaurant when I'm eating by myself. But to go into a room with people who you've known, and I'm putting that in air quotes, you've known them for 50 years, but do you really know them anymore? And people are going to silently be thinking things. They're not going to say it out loud, but so I'm going to be thinking to myself, am I some kind of loser, or did anything I did back 50 years ago does it count for anything anymore, or am I being judged on what I did in the last 20 years or something? So I'm usually pretty good about these things, but I'm having a lot of apprehension about it for some reason.
Again, I find that fascinating, and I understand what you're saying in terms of, and you make a point. You're sitting in a restaurant, people don't know you, as opposed, even though they could be sitting there judging, because we know that people do that. But I understand that you don't know the people in the restaurant, um, as opposed to going to a reunion, or somewhere where you do know people. But do you think that someone who has been divorced um, would be looked at the same way as someone who doesn't have children? Or maybe, there may be someone there who is in a profession or in a job that may not be that great compared to society's uh, standards at this particular age. Do you think that they'll be judged the same way? I mean, don't you think that everybody's going to be coming with their own stories of why this happened or why this didn't happen? And do you think anybody would really care whether or not you got married or don't have kids? I mean, do you think that people would really care, or do you think that people would just be like, "Hey, Crucible, what's up?" And you know,
Yeah, that's a fair point. The divorce thing. I guess I would say, I shouldn't say everybody. Half the country gets divorced. I don't know what the divorce rate is these days, but it used to be around 50%. So that's very common, unfortunately. And then people have been get divorced a second time and sometimes a third time. I know dozens and dozens of divorced guys and women, um, but they all have children. So you kind of have you get one or the other. To not have either one, you know. But yeah, you're right. People are going to have their stories, and I don't expect to be judged. And if I am, I don't really care. The one good thing about being at this point in your life, you don't really care. Stop to think about these things. I would be like, I'm sure the next day after this is over with, I'll be laughing my ass off at how stupid I was for the approach I took. But I'm 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 trying to look at this with I'm among friends. Okay, even though we don't hang out together anymore, we don't have anything in common, like we did back in the day. I'm among friends. And I think you're right. Everyone's going to have a story. People will have job loss. They'll have, maybe a bankruptcy, a death of a spouse or a child, even who knows. You get to this point in your life, everyone's got stories. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I think it'll be a good time. I think I'm trying to talk myself into it. I think.
all right. Chris Unplugged says, I don't need friends. I got family. Alpha says, Crucible is just going to sit there laughing at everyone. Um, Shelby says, I have, but I don't like to. Alpha says, there's nothing wrong with taking yourself out. Why waste time waiting around for others to go with you? Just go. Chris says, Crucible, nothing wrong with that, man. Just do what you need to do to keep your head up. Crucible says, good advice. Alpha says, this reminds me of that movie, Romeo and Michelle. Hello, yes, Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion. Yes. I mean, and Crucible, another thing too is if you feel uncomfortable, just leave. I mean, you have that option, and that's with everything. If you don't like it or you don't feel comfortable or or you're having a good time, then I mean, the most that
Well,
can happen is that you just go home.
right. And I probably won't do that, but that's why having a spouse or somebody there to kind of, while you're trying to figure out who that person over there is and whether they're the spouse or whether they're actually your classmate because you don't remember them. It would be nice to have somebody to kind of turn to say, hey, let's go over to the bar and get a drink, or somebody to kind of take be a buffer while I'm trying to navigate the room.
But don't you
So
think that there's going to be someone there like you who is there by themselves? And because people, you tend to find each other, and when you go into a room like that, you kind of know who's with someone and who isn't. So that's where someone will either come over to you or you go over to them, and you usually end up hanging out with those one or two people the entire night. So I
yeah, you're right, right, and I think what kind of given me pause here a little bit is what do you have in common anymore? I mean, we were in eighth grade together. We had in common, well, we hated our teacher, or we didn't like this group of people over here. So, Mrs. Lackey, who our teacher, she's been gone for a long time. We can't really use her as a pinata anymore, as a unifying force, as something we all have in common. So that's the thing now is you tend to get lulled into this thing where I've known these people for 50 years. Well, technically that's true. You've known whom they are for 50 years, but I had 140 kids in my eighth grade class, which is unheard of these days. That never happens anymore. So out of 140 kids, how many was I really friendly with? I have no idea. I'm going to guess a couple dozen.
Okay, but did you
So
say that you went to the first one you were in your 20s, the second one you were in your 30s?
correct,
Okay,
correct. Mhm.
so you said this is the 50th one. So okay, so there's been a gap of 20 years or so. I mean, um
30.
okay, 30 years. If anything you have in common, and I'm not trying to be funny, I truly am not. And one thing that you have in common is, well, we're all getting old. We're all getting,
And I'm sure that will be the theme of the
and
whole.
that could very well be the thing. You know, so so there is always something in common that you will find. It may not be something in common with everyone, but there's always something in common that a few people have in common. So Shot Lady said, I would venture to say most people in their 60s are probably divorced. Okay. Alpha says, I'll go with you and pretend like I went to that school. Like, hey, what's up, people? Long time no see. You know
Hey, I'll
what? And
take
I
you up
would
on
not
it.
be
Yeah,
surprised
yeah.
if there are some people that actually do that. Crazy Lady says, Crystal, my native sister, is visiting today. Okay. Hope she has a good visit. And I would go for mild curiosity. Chris says, Crucible, don't let your worries about the people around you there judge you for your particular situation. Is not as common as you may think. I agree. And then Chris says, if anything, it's a free lunch or dinner. Crazy Lady says, see how things are working in their kingdoms or if they are in flames. And see, and that is what I would also say, because you do have people who go just to be looky loos. They just go to see, who's doing what, who's falling flat on their face, who's this, who's that, whatever. And some people will probably get there and probably lie anyway. So,
True.
I mean, you know,
And I know somebody said, it's a free lunch or dinner. We are actually paying, but it's very reasonable, and there's an open bar. So this
well,
this
see that
group,
that right there, you have your open bar. So, have you paid?
No, you pay when you get there, so it's
Okay,
not what
okay.
you can't
Well,
pay ahead of time.
I would.
That group has always enjoyed an adult beverage, so I'm guessing once the bar opens, things might start to flow a little bit
Okay,
easier.
okay. So Crucible, okay, I'm going to just to switch it up, and I'm saying Crucible because he's the only one on the panel now. But of course, everyone, please join in. Let's see, Crucible, just tell them, Chris says, just tell them you're low key famous and have to keep a low profile. Tell them you created TikTok. you know, so
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
so what if your okay? This is your eighth grade reunion. Would you feel the same way
Correct.
in at for your high school reunion? Considering that eighth grade and senior in high school is only 5 years apart. So would you feel the same way? Would you have the would you not want to go uh for the same reasons if it was your high school reunion?
That's a tough one. I went to an all boys high school, so the dynamic would be a little bit different. The thing and I have skipped, it's funny you should say that. And I had a good relationship with my high school buddies. It wasn't like I was an outcast or anything. I fit in really, really well. And I think we've had 2 or 3 reunions, and I've skipped them all, and I don't have a good explanation for it. But the thing about this one is, there are, and it sounds really weird at this age to be even thinking about this 50 years ago, but there were a lot of really, in my opinion, again, I was 14 years old, really pretty girls in my class. And I was intimidated as hell. I couldn't even speak for like the first year I was at this school. And I didn't go to the school until 7th grade. So it wasn't like we were together for all 8 years. I got there in 7th and 8th grade. I was only there for 2 years. And so I got to the school at about the time, puberty was kicking in and you're starting to notice girls and everything. And I was absolutely petrified to even speak to these girls. And even after we graduated and I would see them later on, I could barely speak to them because my initial impressions were like, I'm so out of these girls' leagues, they're not even gonna. And so now there's that piece of it. Then you see them again and you're going to be kind of like, was that the girl I had the crush on? And, I can't believe I thought I was going to marry that girl kind of a thing. And you don't get that when your class is all men or all women. So you've got that other, I'm not going to say sexual, but you've got that other opposite sex dynamic that goes on that I'm kind of looking forward to see what some of the girls, now they're women, look like compared to then. And so that's the dynamic that is different from my high school because like I said, I was with all boys.
Does this particular group, eighth grade group, have a Facebook page?
I don't think there's actually there not our eighth grade class. The school I went to has a Facebook page, but this particular group does not, as far as I
I was
know.
gonna
But
say because
we may after
if
this.
you ever want to know what people look like, go to
That's
Facebook
true.
because I will say, people do go to Facebook trying to see what people look like. So, Chris says if you go looking for it, you will fall for the wrong reasons. Let it happen naturally. So, I mean, for me, Crucible, I would just go and like I said, you'll either go and have a good time, or you'll go and you're like, yeah, and then you just leave. And anything, that was like, depending on how far it is, and that's just time. That's just time that you spent.
But from what I've been told about people who have these kinds of reunions, and it doesn't have to be in 8th grade. That is very unusual. But let's just say it's a high school or a reunion. That many years going by, even if you haven't seen each other for 30 or 40 years or whatever it is, there's something about the bond that gets created at that young age where everybody's at the same place. I mean, there's nobody, at least we know one thing, no one's going to be lying about their age. We all know how old each other are. But there's something about what happens at that particular age where you're all still coming of age, you're all still growing up, developing, you're going through the exact same experiences. And there's something about having that experience together that even if 50 years later, it's almost this innate thing that even though we haven't spoken in 50 years or 30 or whatever it's been, we share this thing. we grew up kind of
I
together.
kind of disagree with you on that one. I see Crazy Lady says I didn't really have a high school experience. I kind of disagree with you on that because I mean I understand that you're 14, 15, 16, you all are all going through this together, whatever. But you end up leading your own lives, whatever. And a lot of people leave that part behind. It's not like, I mean, yeah, you come back and say, oh yeah, remember when we did to get this together, whatever. Yeah, but I don't think it's that bond that's gonna like, be that glue, 50, 60 years later. Especially, it's not like it's your 10th year reunion. You're talking 50 years later, and people change. People go through so much, people go through so much in a year, so I think you're overthinking this. I mean, I say just go and see what happens. Chris says, I'm a rare case and lucky I fell in love and married my freshman high school sweetheart. Okay. All right.
Well,
Okay.
and the other thing that's interesting about your reunions, and I, like I said, I had a lot of people in my class, and a lot of them were, and again, I'm going back to 14 years old, were extremely, what's the polite word? Very cruel to a lot of our classmates, and they made life hell for a lot of these kids. And I I was a new kid at that time, and I certainly didn't feel comfortable intervening or sticking up for anybody because I was afraid I might be next. And so there's probably a fact. I wonder how those people feel. I was relatively popular, and I say that I mean I was not singled out as somebody that they made fun of. I was kind of left alone. But I know there was a lot of kids that were just teased mercilessly to the point where I wondered if they were going to need therapy someday. And I wonder now if they, are thinking, well, it's been 50 years. Who's really going to remember? Blah, blah, blah. But I can imagine some people would have some terrible memories of that time in their lives for good reason, because I can still remember it all this time later, the things that were said and on the playground, and just cruel, where these kids were almost in tears, and it happened almost every single day. And kids, as we all know, can be very, very, very mean. So I'm lucky I'm not in that situation, but I'm curious to see, and I know who some of these people are. I remember their names, and I'm curious to see if they're able to put all that behind them for 50 years later and say, let's just let bygones be bygones, because that kind of stuff doesn't really leave you.
Well,
When
no, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to read what Chris says. He says we all, in our own ways, need therapy. Everybody, and I agree. I think that's true. But I will say this: I have read stories, and good place to get some of these stories. Yes, I read Reader's Digest. Yes, I do, the large print. Yes, I do. But I read these stories. I've read them over the years where people have gone to 30, 40, 50-year reunions, and they are still very much, hurt. And, even though you say, after all this time, you're still thinking about this. Yeah, because this person, like Crucible, like you said, put them through hell every single day. And there are some people who they say people have come up to them and said they were sorry. There are some people who, are still acting the same way and still calling them the same names. And there are some people who, it's like, I'm sorry, I just don't forgive you. And this is what I say, to this one girl that I went to high school with. And like I said, from what people are saying, she is still the same, whatever. But she was mean. She was cruel. And one day she went a little bit too far with me and said something, and I said something very, very personal back to her. It hit home, whatever. And I was a freshman. My sister was a senior. This was after it was after school. Her sister was there, and her sister was ready to fight me. And everyone was like, "Well, your sister's been doing this to everybody, blah 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 blah," and she's in tears. I didn't care. It's like you push people to that point. So if she's someone, no, I don't want to see. And I do believe people do carry that. It's like everything is not just because years have passed does not mean that people get over things. So That's just my own feeling. And Chris says, I got a chance to engage with a middle school bully a few years ago, face to face. I made sure he knew I'm not that little kid anymore. I'm bigger, stronger, and very successful. I could care less what he had to say to me. Okay. All right. So, Crucible?
Yeah, I'm just curious. So Chris, that's an interesting observation. Would you forgive if that person came up, and you can just type it in the chat if you want to, whatever. If that person came up to you and said, "Hey, look, I feel terrible for everything that happened back then. I was a kid. I was stupid," whatever their explanation is, I want to apologize. Are people big enough to say, yeah? I mean, I guess if you're going to come to the reunion, you've at least gotten past that a little bit. If you're really, really still traumatized by it, you wouldn't even show up. So you have to think, well, okay, maybe by the fact that you're here, I could come up and apologize. But again, as Shelby said a while back, is that the right place? You're probably never going to see these people again. And that is a different vibe over the whole thing. When we were a lot younger, we could say, well, we're going to get together again. Let's have lunch. Let's do that. And we could actually believe that, even if it never happened. There was a plausible scenario where we could get together and have beers and have lunch and stuff. But at this point in our lives, I mean, you're not going to get that kind of a stuff. So there could be an air of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say something, but Chris is up here, so I think he wants to respond.
Go ahead,
Chris. Hey, what's going on, guys? I hope you can hear me okay. I'm kind of in and out of the matrix area.
Yes.
For me, even though it was in the past and things that happened a long time ago, it's not to say that it was or was not traumatizing. At a young age, being a young child, I think everybody handles their emotions a little bit differently. And as we grow up, we're adults and we learn how to communicate with those things. But for me, specifically to your question, if there were those people that stood out that did me wrong on a regular basis and had no care or change over the years in that environment, to me as an adult, I don't see how somebody like that could, for me, it's not that I wouldn't forgive them, but I don't feel that I would be able to, and most likely would not accept any type of apology that they would give, just for the simple fact on some of the situations that I was put through. And most people are, and we learn to get over that as an adult and deal with that as an older person. No, I don't think I would engage in any conversation with somebody trying to let bygones be bygones. For me, I'm a pretty private guy. You do me wrong, then I really don't have an interest after a second or third chance. It seems to be a little excessive for me, but I would just kind of keep it moving, to be honest with you, just not engage.
Okay, so
but you would go to the reunion though, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, in my particular situation, reunions for me, I've never been to one. I've never had any interest in it. I've always been. I have a huge work ethic. A business to run, and so I'm always very busy. It's not that I don't take time for myself or my wife and I or our kids, but for me, stuff like that, For me, I don't have any interest in it for me, but I get and see and understand why people do go, to keep those connections, or to maybe recap with people that maybe they have forgotten about, or a good class friend that you just kind of lost contact with. So there's lots of reasons to do it. But for me and my family, we're a pretty tight-knit group. People, when I say I don't have friends, I have family, if hopefully it's not taken out of context. If you are a true friend to me, you in essence become a family member. It's not, it's a coworker, let's go hang out after work, catch a beer, let's go for a ride, or, I'm not really into any of that kind of stuff, because I like to go to work, focus on my jobs, get home to my family and spend time with my family. I don't really enjoy any other free time, I guess you could say, outside of work and home.
Okay. All right. And Crucible, what I wanted to point out was, is you said two things. You said, would you be the bigger person? And then you said, that they probably wouldn't show up at the reunion anyway. I think that they would show up, and I say show up. Don't let that person keep you from going. But it always amazes me when people say you should be the bigger person. It's like, why do you have to go out of your way, whatever, when this person has been a jerk, you know, um, so and sometimes people, it's like if someone has just been mean to people, or beat someone up every day, or was taking their money, or whatever, or just thought they were an easy target just because they were, and they were the weaker person, whatever. I'm sorry. Sometimes, and I know I'm going to get slammed, by this. Some people may not like what I'm going to say, but why does the person who's being picked on always have to be the bigger person? So
I agree with you 100%.
I mean, seriously, it's like, no. Because to me, it's like, at what point does a bully learn their lesson, no matter how old they are, whatever, even if it was 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 80 years ago, whatever. The fact is that you did it. And I want you to know that I'm still thinking about you did it. And just because you're saying you're sorry, I went through hell. You made my, senior year hell. You made my 8th grade year hell. Or when I was in first grade, I'm supposed to be having fun, and I got picked on. So sorry, I don't feel that whole bigger person thing. So, Crucible.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I agree with you that you shouldn't have to be the bigger person. The onus should be always on the person who has created the problem, or the hurt feelings or anything. It should not be the person who was tormented and was made fun of. But it's funny that you would say that, because I remember about 10 or 11 years ago, I wasn't there. There was a get together at this same school that we all went to. And it was a carnival or something. I don't know what it was. I didn't go. I didn't know about it. But a bunch of people that will probably be at this reunion were there, and they took a picture. And I remember this one girl, one woman, who I remember distinctly. They made her life a living hell. She wasn't very pretty. She was very smart, and so they thought she was a nerd and whatnot. And these were the girls now. The boys kind of just picked on the boys. These were the girls now. We know, girls can be kind of rough, and they made her life hell. And I forgot all about her. And here we are. I'm looking at this picture that a buddy of mine showed me who was there. There she is, right in the middle of the same group of girls who made her life a living hell. She looked much different. She looked much prettier. And she obviously was okay with being back with the group. Whether they mended fences formally, whether anybody actually spoke about what happened, I have no idea. But I almost dropped the picture when I looked at it and I saw her in the middle. I'm like, that can't be real. So if that group can kind of mend fences, I mean, anything's possible. And I don't think she would have been the one to say, hey guys, can we be friends again? I'm guessing these girls kind of, over the course of time, said, we got to make this thing right. So I guess it's possible that people can feel bad, and I was starting to say earlier, there, in these kinds of reunions, 50 years, as opposed to the earlier ones, this would have an air of finality about it. Not that we're all going to die next week. I don't mean that, but that we're not going to see each other again, probably. And there are some people coming in, I know, from out of town. I don't know how many people still live here. But being at a 20-year reunion or something, you still can tell yourself, I'll see these people again at some point. Maybe you will or maybe you won't. But you could tell yourself that and believe it. This time, you're going to leave that place probably knowing, I will never see most of these people, maybe none of them, ever again. Does that change the vibe? I have no idea, but I have to think there's something that will influence that kind of a mood when we're knowing this is the last time we're going to have a reunion.
No, I mean, and I understand what you're saying. I just want to read what Crazy Lady says. She says, "I will admit I am nosy, and would be mild amusement and curiosity." I mean, I understand that, but if it was one of those things where, well, this may be the only one, the last one, then for me, if this person, was nasty or mean to me, it's like, oh, well, I won't see her again. So then in terms of that girl who was in the middle of, I mean, everyone approaches things differently. There's no right way for everyone. Everyone will make their own decision on how they want to approach things. Some people may think that you're approaching it the wrong way. People may think that you're approaching it the right way. Some people may think there's only one right way, whatever, or only one wrong way. I mean, people will approach things differently depending upon what they went through and what their experience is, and people will respond in kind to you know how things turned out, whatever. So you know um I don't know.
Well, now, I mean, I really, I appreciate the support from everybody. Really, I do. The chat comments and whatnot. I'm feeling a lot better about it now, just in the time we've been talking. I mean, don't talk to me an hour from now and it could be different.
Your
But
therapy session.
it is. It's a free therapy session, and I'm starting to see the glass half full as the glass half empty. Because if you sit here and kind of went down the list, well, this could be, and this is going to be bad, but you wouldn't leave the house. So I'm feeling a lot better about this. I'm really starting to look forward because, like I said, you're not going to see people. The people are going to be in a much more congenial type of a mood, and I just think it'll be an opportunity with people that you're never going to see again, but have shared experiences with. You're going to get a mood in the room, I think, an appreciation that here we are 50 years later, and we didn't always get along, but we took the time to show up here after 50 years. That means something, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get philosophical, yeah, yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I think people show up to reunions for various reasons. No matter what year it is. I think people show up to be looky-loos. I think people show up to be, see who made it and who didn't. I think people show up because they really do want to engage with people. I think people show up to see, um, you know, like you said, that girl that I had a crush on. What does she look like? That guy, what does he look like? Whatever. Um, that bully who bullied me, what are they doing now? Are they living a miserable life? you know um I mean, so I think people show up for reunions for different reasons, and the same thing for family reunions is like, um I do believe that there are those family members that you don't see all the time, who people were whispering about. We know, here comes so and so. We know she always did this. We know so and so said this, or he's this, or he's that. I think people show up for the same reasons. You know, is your cousin really like that? Did your niece really do that? They're dating who? But then again, I think people also go to family reunions because they truly want to engage with family. After all, to me, the bottom line is everybody's human, and people are going to show up or do whatever, um, for whatever reasons. Welcome, lovely girl. So, see, Chris says, I probably get caught trying to leave with the cake. Chris says, Crucible, I say go for it. You've got nothing to lose. So yeah, now you're saying exactly my plan, but like you said, is that going to change tomorrow? Only Crazy Lady says family reunion is done because of duty. And that's a good point. Crazy Lady, do people go to family reunions because it's expected of them, because they have to? I have had people say, how come you didn't show up to the family reunion? It's like I was expected to be there, so
No,
you
crazy
know
lady, she makes a good point. Family reunions, there is an air of obligation there, but a class reunion, you're not obligated to do anything. So you have to believe, and this is what I'm starting to feel better about, is people make a conscious decision. You don't have to go because your mother said or you're somebody. See, you're going because you actually want to see these people again. There's a big difference in terms of how you approach things if you're doing it out of obligation or if you're doing it of your own free will. So I think that's a good point. Nobody will be there, I don't think, because they feel like they have to be. They're going to be there because they want to be.
yeah, and you go to some family reunions, and you know if you go out of obligation, I've sat and I've looked at people at a family reunion like, I'm ready to go. I don't want to be here. And you can tell that, especially if they're young, they don't want to be there. But I've seen older people who are like, I'm ready to go. So and that's another thing. Just because it's a sense of duty, should you have to go? Is it a big thing if you don't go? Because for me, I didn't go to my family reunion because I didn't want to. Plain and simple. I did not want to go. And I didn't. So, how many people do show up who really don't want to be there? And is it wrong? Is it wrong with me not going because I didn't want to? And you can say the same thing. Well, yeah, but as you get older, these people, die and whatever. And on one hand, I can say, well, I haven't seen them in 30 years anyway, and on the other hand, it's like, well, okay, but so.
Well, and what's
Go
okay,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Now, well, what's interesting about this one is when the person who's putting this together, what used to be a very good friend of mine, and when he sent me the email a few months back saying that they were going to do this, he ended up sending another email. I don't know why, but he did, telling us how many people we had in the class, and unfortunately, how many we have lost in that time. And I can't remember what the number is, but it might have been 12 or 15. So there's going to be another element to this reunion that wasn't present in the other ones, and that will be, who's gone. So-and-so, did you hear about so-and-so? That's going to be a little bit weird because we didn't have to worry about that at other reunions because we were young.
But that's expected too, though, because you are older and people do tend to pass away as you get older. So it's also expected.
Very much so. Yeah. I mean, I'm not, that's going to be, it's not going to be a sad thing. It's just going to be one of those things where we've never talked about those kinds of things. It's just like you'd be right. It's a natural part of life, and it'll be, come up in the conversations as the conversations happen. And it's just one of those things that happens when you get to this point in your life.
Yeah. I mean, so only Crazy Lady says, oh my God, family reunion is mandatory. And she says you must make an appearance. And as you know, Crazy Lady, I disagree with you on that one. At least when my dad was alive, okay, Dee says if you're going to have a toot when you are there, why bother going? Yeah, I mean, if you know that and that's another thing. It's like, I don't want someone there, even if I'm the one who's putting it together or whatever, or even if I invite you over my house, and if you don't want to be there, your spouse is making you go, or your mom or dad, whatever, stay home, So let's see. The only Crazy Lady says, but there are still events that we have to attend because of duty. Okay. All right. Okay.
Well, the other thing I'm kind of curious about, as I said earlier, this was a group that likes their adult beverages, and the other two reunions we had, if I recall, it got very late and people were very much into their cups. I'm curious as to, at this point in our lives, do people still drink the way they used to? I mean, I would expect that they don't. I certainly don't. So when alcohol is less of a factor in the whole thing, do we have the same conversations? Will we have as much fun? It's just, I'm not worried about it or anything. I'm just kind of musing out loud about it. But that's something that wasn't an issue in past reunions. We knew we were all going to get shit faced, and we did. And if we hope, maybe we'll do this time too. If we do, it'll be great. But I really think that it'll be a good time. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, good, and you should. Chris says, I'm not obligated to nothing but my wife, children, and God. Then D-Max says, funerals, duty. It becomes a reunion of sorts. Family reunions and funerals in terms of duty. That's interesting. That is interesting. All right, so Crucible, since you're the only one on the panel, I asked, is there anything else you want to say? Because we are going to wind it down.
No, I thought this was a really good topic today, and I do appreciate all the comments and whatnot from people in the chat and you, Solid. I'm since being sincere here. This was very, very helpful. I've been, going back and forth, way, way, way overthinking this thing, and I have to remind myself these are your friends. You're not walking into enemy territory here. You're going to have a good time, and you're going to be glad you did it afterwards because life is too short. We're in the twilight. I'm in the twilight here, and it will be good to see familiar faces and do some reminiscing. And there's just it's just going to be a good feeling. 50 years is an awfully long time. It's a big chunk of most people's lives, and I'm looking forward to see how people have done, what they look like. I'm thinking it's going to be a nice time. So I appreciate everybody's comments today.
Okay. And Charlie, I'll give you the last word.
I was listening a lot, but I was in the store and fading in and out. So now that I'm at home, I can share something. I know that Crucible is pretty much the only one that was talking, and he's got the reunion going on. So I just want to say to him that I think it's great that you want to go. And if these people are your friends, I think you definitely should go and visit with them. Me, on the other hand, I don't really have any friends from high school. And I have one friend from college who I've talked to all the time. And I wouldn't go to like my college reunion, even though I didn't really talk to a lot of people there. I wouldn't go to that one either because I really didn't have any friends there. I had one really good friend who's in my life now that I talk to all the time. So with all these people being in your life that you associate with, I think it's probably a good idea to go. And I hope you have fun. So that's pretty much
I
it.
appreciate that, Shy Lady. I think that's the right way to look at it. So I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. And for me, I will still say when people call me and say, hey, we're having another high school reunion, I will probably say thank you. But no thank you because I'm fine. So, but on that note, guys, thank you guys so much for coming up. Chris, thank you for taking the time to jump on the panel. Much appreciated. Crazy Lady, D-Mac, Power Girl, Brina, Shelby, Minnesota family, Frankie, Alpha Mike was here earlier. All of you guys, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. As you guys know, Thursday is my Friday. I know y'all tired of hearing me say that, but it is. So I will not be back with my turn to talk until Monday, but Ba and I will be here on Saturday, the 17th, for Friendly Differences at 12 noon Pacific, where Spanky and Scooter will be the guests. We do not have a topic with them. I don't think you really need one, but I am just looking forward to laughing because both of them just make me laugh. So, Shiley, goodbye to you. You have a blessed weekend. And everyone, again, go where the wind takes you. And I hope to see you on Saturday and definitely back on Monday. Bye. And Crucible, thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me. It was a good therapy session.
I was about to say this was the therapy session today. So hope we were able to give you some good therapy. You had your therapy.
Stay tuned.
The Crazy Lady, what you said about the duty thing, I'm still like, that's my moment. I'll be thinking about that. Okay, everyone.